friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Mariah, this is Mariah's Moods, and in today's video, let's talk about all of the books that I finished in the month of August. So I'm trying out a new camera angle. I am in front of my shelves. The reason why I don't film in front of my shelves very often is because it's actually in my staircase. I live in a very small base housing, so room is very limited, and the lighting in my staircase and the echoing is not the best, but I figured I'd give it a try, see how it goes. Don't pay too much attention to my shelves. They are going to be reorganized very, very soon. But without further ado, let's talk about the books that I finished this month. So in the month of August, I finished 9 books. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 books in the month of August. I think overall it was a really fun and interesting reading month, but it's definitely burnt me out, but that I think will make more sense in a minute. So let's go ahead and just get into the wrap up. So the first book that I want to talk about is One for My Enemy by Ivy Blake. I read this to participate in Becky from Bex Reads book club. She has the Black Hat Book Coven, and her August pick was One for My Enemy. I really enjoyed this book. I ended up rating it 4 out of 5 stars, and then sometimes I kind of want to give it higher the more that I think about it. So this is following two dueling rich families. We have the Antonovas and the Fedorovs. They are existing in modern day Manhattan, but kind of functioning in this world that we are not aware of. There is magic, there are witches, and they kind of give off mob vibes. Well, some things are changing between these two families and kind of the world that they're working in, and basically sides are being chosen, not necessarily the side that families are loyal to. The live show for this book was really great discussion, so definitely go check out the live show for this. I think it's posted on Jackie's channel from First Lady Reads. She also pointed out something that was very interesting that on my first read I didn't really notice, but when you think back on it, definitely makes sense. So we obviously have some Romeo and Juliet inspiration for this story, but we also see bits of Othello and Hamlet. So if you are a fan of Shakespeare and fantasy, I really think that you would enjoy this book. This was actually my first try with Ivy Blake, and I really enjoyed it, so I definitely want to check out more of her works in the future. After that, I did a reread of Akamath, A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book in the ACOTAR series and hands down my favorite book. My In Real Life book club decided to reread this in the month of August, and it was so much fun just going through this with a fine-tooth comb, looking for the little Easter eggs that we find in not just only ACOTAR, but little bits from her other series, and it was just fantastic and honestly just a comfort read. I know it's cliche, but I really do love this series, and I really do love this book. Obviously, it was a 5-star again. So for the rest of the month of August, I read romance. I was participating in the romance readathon that's hosted by Maggie from Maggie's Books and Stuff, but I will be very honest and say that I just fell short on the readathon. I was reading, but was I tracking my reading? No. Was I looking at the society papers and tracking my character? No, and I feel terrible about that, but honestly, August is just a very busy month for me. I'm a teacher. School starts back in August, so I was just drowning in work. So the fact that I was reading was enough for me. There was a gnat. Oh, that's not a good thing. Anyway, so the rest of my reading month was all romance, and while I have been enjoying romance this year, I think reading 7 romance books in a short period of time might have been a little too much. I think it was a little too much for me, and I need a break from romance, and I miss fantasy, and I miss thrillers, so, With that being said, though, I did really enjoy the romances that I did read, so let's get into it. So I read Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. This was probably the last romance book of the month that I read, and so I think I was getting a little burnt out. I think I'm going to think about this a little bit more. I might increase my rating, but right now 3 out of 5 feels pretty right. This is following Anastasia and Nate. So Stas is a figure skater with a partnership, and Nate is the captain of their college's hockey team. So this is set in a university, which was really, really fun. But essentially there is a prank that is set on the ice rink, and both the figure skaters and the hockey team are impacted. It causes them to kind of come in close proximity to each other. At first, they're very annoyed by each other, but romance blooms. We've got some friends to love. It was just cute. It was a really cute little romance. I think that there was definitely some conversations on deep topics. And while I do appreciate that in the story, I just felt like in some instances it just really wasn't necessary, or maybe explored as deeply as I think it should have been. I think that it was trying to be a lighthearted rom-com-y romance, but then it was like digging into deep topics, some serious triggering topics that didn't get the attention I feel that they deserve. So I think it was just trying to do two different things. Overall, I enjoyed it. It was nice. It was kind of fun just reading this and being a little nostalgic. So some of the things that they talk about really reflect, at least for me, the college experience, talking about frat parties and Halloween and the importance of athletics in college, and just those really strong bonds that you build with people while you are at university, while you're in college, with your roommates and your friends and the people in your major, and just the people that you're surrounding yourself with. I do like how you kind of have this found family dynamic because you are thrusted into this environment and you are away from your family, and you just kind of create the family with the people that you're living with and around with a lot. But with that comes a lot of toxicity and immaturity because, let's be honest, in college we're all still children. Even though legally we're adults, like mentally we're just not there yet. So the drama was good, their banter was good, their relationship was good. I really liked Stassi, and I liked that she was a woman and not afraid to just be a woman and just have fun and not feel guilty for having fun with boys. I just appreciate that. I love that we weren't demonizing girls in this book. So I do think it was great. I do highly recommend. It just wasn't my favorite of the month. So then I read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I really, really love this book. I think I ended up giving this a 4.5 out of 5. This is not my favorite Ali Hazelwood book, but I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, it is Ali Hazelwood. I've read a few of her books at this point, and we kind of get the same story over and over again with a little bit of differences. We've got the girl who is in STEM and really, really successful, really, really brilliant, but is kind of being held back from some of the systemic sexism that we find in STEM. But she's quirky, she's fun, she goes with the flow, and we obviously have the male protagonist who's a little bit grumpy, who doesn't necessarily think that women in STEM are a bad idea and actually would probably support it, but it's not enough for them to like actively speak out against, you know, but they get together. This one specifically I really like because it is looking at the politics that are in academia itself, more of the hiring process with tenure and the interview process and the politics and good old boy system that goes along with that. I love this. I know it's the same thing over and over again, but I just eat it up. I eat it up. I eat it up. I love it. All right, so then we have Sweet Hand by N.G. Pelletier. We're following Charisse. Charisse is a baker. She's got a pretty good following on social media. She's got a blooming business, and she has basically sworn off all men and all musicians. She was kind of burned really badly by an ex, and she's like, don't want anything to do with it. But when her sister gets engaged and is planning a wedding that she is the maid of honor in, she realizes that the best man is Kieran, who is a musician. Because they are the best man and the maid of honor, they have to work together to basically plan some of those key events like the engagement party, the bachelorette party, the bachelor party, the rehearsal dinner, all of that fun stuff. So they have to work together, and because of that, relationship blooms. They've known each other their entire life. They function in a very small group of friends, but they just always kind of pick at each other. They've picked each other's buttons, and they just don't really care for each other. But they learn that actually there's a little bit of a spark there. It's really cute. It's light. Absolutely enjoyed this one, and I would definitely recommend. So I read My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. I'm going to go ahead and give this a 3 out of 5. Part of me wants to rate it a little bit lower. I will say I was a little disappointed in this one. For one, I love the cover. The cover is absolutely adorable, and it was supposed to be romance with a murder mystery or some type of mystery to be solved, and it was that. It kind of fell a little short for me, and I don't want to say boring, but it kind of was. So we're following Taylor. Taylor is on vacation in Cape Cod before the new school year starts. She's like a 2nd grade teacher, and she brings her brother along. They're just like, let's just have this one last kind of hurrah for the summer. Well, she gets this Airbnb. First night they get there, she finds a deceased body. The sister of the deceased man has now hired this bounty hunter to investigate his murder and figure out like what's really happening, because the cops really aren't moving with this. So we've got Miles, who is an ex-detective, current bounty hunter, who basically owes this woman a favor. So he comes to town to start to investigate what happened to this man, why did it happen, what's the deal, let's solve this. He's just there to basically fulfill his favor and move on with his life. But because Taylor was the one that found the man, the deceased, he has to work with her. He has to question her. And there is an immediate, like, I don't want to say insta love, but definitely insta attraction. Like, it gets spicy pretty quick, which was fun. I enjoyed that. But that's just kind of where it is. Like, I just really didn't care for the writing style. I feel like a lot of this story was very preached to the reader. And what I mean by that is, instead of us witnessing certain things within an interaction, we're basically told outright how this person feels or how they think about this. Or instead of seeing like really cute banter back and forth or this relationship start to bloom, it just felt very much like told to you. Like, oh, we're in love. I'm like, but why? Like, I don't see you guys doing anything, getting to know each other, having those deep conversations that would really fuel a relationship. It's just like we are meant to assume that it's there and that the relationship is believable. At the end of the day, I think that's what it was. It just wasn't believable to me. It could just be the writing. This is my first experience with Tessa Bailey, but I'm not going to completely write her off. There was some parts that I did really enjoy. Overall, it just really wasn't my favorite, but I would still recommend. So 3 out of 5. Speaking of favorites, I think for this month, this has to be my favorite new read. I'm not gonna go into my reread, but this one I still think about, and I cannot wait to get into the second one in this series, and that is Mile High by Liz Tomford. Oh my god, I loved this book, and I can't even say why. 5 out of 5 stars. This romance was fantastic. So we're following Stevie. Stevie is the new flight attendant for a professional hockey team, and she obviously is there to assist the team on flights to away games. And we also have Xanders, who is the co-captain of this professional hockey team. Now, when they first meet, it's not like hate. They're definitely not enemies. I think just their personalities don't really vibe. Xanders has the reputation of being the team's bad boy, while his best friend is kind of the golden boy of the team. And it really plays into what the public thinks about the team, and that dynamic just kind of makes the team have more recognition and therefore more money. So he really plays into this whole bad boy, party guy, bachelor, grump kind of personality that the public knows. And so when she first meets him, she's like, oh, of course, he's an asshole. Makes sense, tracks. But we learned that there's definitely more to Xanders than what he is putting out to the public. And Stevie is really, really awesome in understanding him. and just being accepting of who he is. And I do love that we've got a little bit of curvy plus size representation, and the fact that we have a male that is like all for it is fantastic and is so great about reassuring Stevie about her body and that she is gorgeous and that she is everything. And Xander's is just I just want to eat him up, and he was just so fantastic. I love the way that this author wrote these characters. This is dual POV, so we're getting both Stevie and Xander's perspectives on the situation of this romance, and she just does a fantastic job writing from both of them. They felt like real people. Their issues felt like real issues. Their communication and support of one another was fantastic. And I love them. I love them. I love their banter. I love their relationship. I love their support of one another. I loved the hockey aspects. I loved the situations on the planes. It was just so fantastic. And the spice was great. Great. Oh, so good. Like, Xander's. Where you at, baby? Where you at? Oh my God. This was just so fantastic. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. Mile High is the way to go. All right, so after that, I read Twisted Love by Anna Huang. This is the first book in the Twisted series. I really, really like this one. We are following Alex and Ava. We've got brother's best friend romance. So Ava's older brother is leaving the country to do some work, I think in South America. And so her brother speaks to his best friend Alex and was like, hey, just keep an eye out for my sister. You know, I'm gone. We don't really talk to our family. Just keep an eye out on her. So Alex, being the good guy that he is, and I mean that like a little sarcastically, takes it a little far. Becomes extremely protective of Ava, like immediately, moves in to the brother's house, which is basically like across the street from where Ava lives, and decides to become her bodyguard, like in a sense. Now, it kind of makes sense for his character because Alex is involved with basically the Russian mob, and so he's a little shady, he's a little gritty, very gritty, and he's extremely protective. And so we've got this touch her and I will kill you trope going on here, and it's so good. It's so good. This one did surprise me with where it went. It is dark. It gets dark, and the experiences that both Alex and Ava have as a child greatly influence how they behave as adults. And it's really interesting because they go through similar type trauma. I guess you could almost put them in the same category, but the way that they both respond to that as adults is different. Alex decides to take his trauma and start a revenge kind of path for his life, and is very protective of who he surrounds himself with, who he interacts with, how he approaches love and relationships. And then on the other hand, Ava, who has gone through her own childhood trauma, has decided to focus on the positive of life and what life has to offer, and how we can still see sunshine when there's so much gloom around us. So it's really interesting to have both of them come together in a romantic relationship. I think it was done really, really well. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars, and I just loved it. And I loved it so much that I picked up the second book in the series. So this one is Twisted Games. This is the second book in the Twisted series. So this one is following Bridget and Reese. So we see a glimpse of Bridget in the first book, and now she gets a little highlight in the second book. Bridget is actually a princess of a small European country. She is basically having to return back to her country to fulfill some of her duties. And with that, she is going to bring her bodyguard, Reese, who had worked with her while she was living in the United States. And so he's going to follow her to her country while she fulfills her royal duties. So we've got some bodyguard romance here. Again, we have the toucher, I'll kill you trope, which was so fun, so good. The spice in these books are fantastic. So I think what I really enjoyed about this was Bridget as a character. I love that Bridget does not take shit. She doesn't. She is very opinionated. She's spoken about her opinion, and I love how reflective she is. So this again is dual POV, so we're hearing from Reese and from Ava, and I really enjoyed Ava's chapters. She just is very reflective. She thinks on things. She's a thinker. She doesn't just outright act, which I really, really love. I think that just shows mental maturity in my opinion, and it's really fun to see. Reese, I really, really enjoyed. I feel like I could have gotten a little bit more of Reese. He was very reserved as a character. He just didn't get really that deep into him, which tracks for his character, but seeing that we were in his mind in his chapters, I feel like we could have gotten a little more depth. Overall, I really enjoyed the story. I love where it went and how it ended, and I cannot wait to continue reading in this series. Alright, my friends, so these are the 9 books that I read over the month of August. I think it was overall a really great reading month. I think I got some new favorites out of this month, but I think I've definitely burnt myself out on romance, so I think I'm going to take a break on that next month. I think I'm going to go ahead and get back to my regularly scheduled fantasy and thrillers. If you like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, do all of the things. If you like bookish lifestyle content, you're in the right place. Hope you're having a wonderful time out there and your day is full of good moods and good vibes. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!